Let's welcome in. It's been too long since we've had him on the program. From the fourth period, NHL insider David Pagnotta back on Securus and Price. Nice to see you and hear you again. How you doing, David?
I'm good, boys. I'm good. It's we're smack in the middle of July now, so hopefully, staying refreshed. Clearly, it looks like.
Hey, touche. How busy were you? How busy was it in the lead up to the draft and free agency this year compared to other years?
We felt a letdown, but maybe we built it too.
We were sitting there going, "Oh my God, all this crazy stuff's going to happen." But what says you?
I was let down as well. Yes, I think a lot of people were. The activity behind the scenes was high. There was a lot of talk, a lot of going back and forth. And in hindsight, when I thought about it afterwards, the day of the draft, the morning of, everybody's kind of huddling around the hotel, and it's in LA Live. It's right across from the theater, right next to the arena. You're talking to some agents and some other hockey guys around and some of the PR staff that's there. And you're going, it's not the same. It's we usually get things done in person, and it's just, it's not the same kind of vibe, but you're still hearing all this chatter and all this talk. So I thought, okay, well, I know not everyone's here, but maybe we'll still at least get some crazy activity. Then the Dobson thing hit. You're going, all right, perfect. This is what we want. I was right in the lobby of the hotel. A bunch of agents were kind of huddled around, and then all of a sudden the Dobson deal broke, and everyone's going, oh, okay, well, maybe this is going to open the floodgates. And it didn't. So we thought there'd be a lot of activity. I was side stage, just kind of in the backstage, getting ready for everything. And you're hearing this, you're hearing that, you're hoping that there's going to be activity. Is Utah trading that pick? Are the Islanders moving up? Is Chicago moving theirs? What's going on with Boston? And sad trombone.
Yeah.
We got nothing.
Narrator's voice, it did not heat up.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, and I think the difference this year was, we heard it year after year, there's so much talk, and you're hopeful that something's going to happen. And there were no trades in the first round last year. And this year, again, the Dobson trade set it off, and there's so much other activity and San Jose that morning started to shop that second overall pick to see, maybe somebody's going to cough up a piece that's just too good to pass up. And nothing happened. And, you're hoping, okay, maybe it's pick 3. No, maybe it's 4. Maybe it's 5. Is Nashville going to do anything? And just nothing.
In the Canucks pull off the Evander Kane trade early in sort of the pre-buildup, and so I think Canucks fans got their antenna up and like, okay, Rutherford's going to go into trading mode here and start to go to work. Take us through how many times you sort of cross paths with the Canuck brand over those busy behind the scenes discussions, only to be disappointed. I mean, Canuck fans disappointed they couldn't secure that second line center that they were talking about. Did you feel like the Canucks were putting a lot of lines in the water?
Yeah, they were. The night before the draft, I got the Canucks had a big brass there. There was Mikhail Samuelsson, obviously, that came on stage and presented, but Mike Komisarek was there. A number of the other, scouting staff and whatnot were around town, and you're talking to them and just shooting the what, and later on that evening, I started to catch wind that the Canucks might actually trade their pick. Like they're trying hard to get somebody up front. They're trying to move that pick, and then I joked with Samuelsson that morning that you might not have anything to do. And turned out nothing happened. So they were definitely looking around. They were definitely, trying to see what was out there, like all the other teams. Everyone was kind of fishing around to see, can we make a move here by moving out my pick in order to get somebody that can help us right away? LA was doing the same thing with 24, and then they ended up moving back and gaining a second round pick out of it, or third, or whatever it was. But there were a lot of teams that were looking to kind of fill holes, but nothing really transpired. It was the Dobson trade, and kudos to the Islanders. I think their draft went fantastic. I mean,
oh wow, did it ever?
To get those kids at 16 and 17, I didn't think they'd be available at that point. So they hit a home run in that trade overall. But the Canucks were active, and I think they had a lot of lines out there. It was just obviously nothing transpired.
David, we had heard they offered 15 and a roster player to Minnesota for Marco Rossi. Now,
Rossi.
Yeah, since we've heard Dakota Joshua's name is out there. So does it stand to reason it was Joshua in 15? Do you have any inside knowledge on who the player was?
No, I don't get. A, no, and B, I don't get the sense that Joshua was the guy. I think that might have been involved in something else. But again, they were out there. They were out there looking. They're out there, not just for 2C, but they're also looking to see what their options were going to be if they can bring in somebody else to add to that top six. And this is obviously before July 1, so before things got really, Brock's thing was the final hour. Before the doors opened, but they were looking to see what their options were going to be, and they couldn't get to the finish line. Now, some of it was they didn't like every team. They didn't like it. The other team didn't like it. Obviously, Minnesota didn't like the package, and they held on to Rossi for now. But he's still available. They're still trying to figure stuff out with him. He shares the same agent as Keandre Miller. They worked out a sign and trade. Let's see what happens here with Rossi in Minnesota.
Yeah. Come July 1st, you had the news. Canucks were still looking for that second line center. What happened with Michael Granlund, best you can tell?
It was going to take an overpay, a pretty decent overpay, was my understanding, for him to jump on with the Canucks. Obviously, they were interested, and the numbers that I had heard was 4 years times 6 per. It obviously would have taken more than that because he didn't sign it. But my understanding throughout the whole thing was he wasn't overly interested in coming to Vancouver unless it was just an offer he couldn't refuse. And clearly it didn't happen. He went to Anaheim for 3 years times 7. He's got some trade protection. He's got security, at least in the first year. A full no trade, and then it drops off to a 15-team list and a 10-team list in the third year. But look, the Canucks tried. They had a lot of lines out there in the free agent market as well, and they were dipping their toe in to try to see who might be available, who might be interested. Granlund was the guy they targeted. It just didn't seem like he was overly interested in jumping on board, at least not for the numbers that were being suggested by the Canucks.
There's names out there. There's a Jack Roslovic out there if the Canucks so chose, and if the price got low enough that I think it made sense for them. Mm-hmm. Or they sit and wait, and it seems like there could be trade activity, David. It seems like teams still want to do things here this summer, but there's going to have to be some salary moved, right?
For some. Certainly. And there are teams that are willing to take on some money if they're, incentivized to do it. Pittsburgh's one of them. Pittsburgh's in full sell mode, but at the same time, they've got some extra cap space. So if you want to throw an extra pick or two their way, they're ready to fill those cupboards again. Obviously, the San Jose Sharks are still going through their rebuild. They're not going to retain on anything, but they're willing to take on a little bit of money in their deal. And they've got defensemen to move. They're actively trying to move at least one of their guys right now for some bodies up front. So for teams that want to be creative in moving money, there are options available to them. But because of the shallow free agent pool and how much it really dried up on June 30th when everybody decided to stay where they were, a lot of teams started to look to see what those options were going to be. And now, everybody's a master negotiator, so it's going to take a little bit of time before somebody, bends. But the anticipation is, and I'm not the only one hearing this, is we're going to see activity over the course of the summer. But, it's likely to be sporadic. We may see a couple deals happen on one day because it's kind of got a trickle effect. Mm-hmm. But for other teams looking at options, August, beginning of August, end of August, September, things of that nature. I certainly anticipate teams looking in those directions to see, maybe we can pull something off here in the middle of summer to fill a void, to fill a need. Teams start to analyze that, even though it's development camp and it's all the young kids, everybody's kind of together, and they start to kind of talk amongst each other to see what the options are going to be, where the holes, did we fill a void? Do we still have, a vacancy in this area, and so on and so on. So those conversations happen. A lot of eyes on Pittsburgh because, again, of their sell mode. But we'll see kind of what happens there. Brian Rust is interesting because he went from a no move to nothing. He doesn't have any no trade protection. Raquel still has his limited no trade, so he's obviously on a lot of target lists. But he's got a high price as well, a little bit higher than Rust from what I've been hearing, just because of the outburst of the season that he had this past year. But we'll see kind of where this all aligns. And for teams like Vancouver, and the thing is, there's like 14 other teams that would love to get a number 2 center. So
yeah. Therein lies the problem.
Do you settle for just a great winger set and hope that your centers can do the job? Rather
you might have to.
Yeah.
You might have to. Like, there are a lot of teams, like the Canadians are very active and are still looking at the 2C position, but they're comfortable for now with Kirby Dach at the center for the time being. Toronto would love to make another move for a top 6 winger. But they're not adverse to getting a center because they could slot Tavares over to the left side. I think they'd prefer somebody on the right. But they're looking. Edmonton is poking around a little bit to see what other options are available out there as well. LA's looking around. Like, there are a lot of teams that are still looking to see, is there something we can pounce on? And if it means bringing on another winger, even though we want a 2C and figure out our options, sure, let's go in that direction. They might not pay a premium, but everybody's kind of keeping their options open right now.
Yeah, and Florida, Montreal, Dallas, Tampa, Vancouver, Philly, Vegas, and Ottawa are their only teams with less than $2 million in cap space. We haven't factored in RFAs, but you get beyond that, and you just get teams that have tremendous amounts of cap space. Again, RFAs notwithstanding. David, Bowen Byram, BC boy, Cranbrook, played his junior hockey here with the Vancouver Giants. Canucks were tied to him way back in the fall when they were looking for defensemen before the Marcus Pettersson trade they wound up making. And we even heard them connected with the Canucks here in June, heading up to the draft and free agency. They've spent their money on Besser and others. Are we done here with the Canucks and Bowen Byram, and where do you see that file going?
Short answer is yes. I think it is. I think it was more. I don't know this definitively, but trying to read the tea leaves between the lines and all that stuff, it sounded like Buffalo re-engaged to say, hey, what would Petey cost? As the price changed, and that's kind of where that name, Byram's name, kind of re-entered the mix, but. Obviously didn't get anywhere, and we're still here kind of waiting to see what happens with the Sabres now that they've elected to go to arbitration with him. Eliminates the offer sheet threat, but it doesn't eliminate the fact that they may still end up moving him at some point once they figure out contract and all that stuff. So he's still available. The Sabres want to upgrade themselves up front. They know he would prefer a change of scenery, just like Peterka did. It's just a matter of finding the right fit and to fill the need that they want. They don't want if they're getting futures, they're flipping it like almost immediately. They've got to figure that all out together. So with the Canucks, I think it was real more so in the season than it was this past June. But honestly, for me, it would probably be something coming out of left field once all is said and done, if something does happen with the Canucks.
We flirted with the Rossi issue. Is Rossi in the same boat? Like, does Bill Guerin all of a sudden have to just negotiate a contract? Because this is not a player that has, a contract for this season. So something has to give. Does he just come to terms with the fact he's got to at least sign Rossi first? Where is it going?
No. Billy's going to hold tight on that one. By the sounds of things, like if he has to take it to September, if he has to take it to camp, I don't think he's afraid to do that. There's so much of a gap in contractual philosophy here,
really,
between the two sides that unless something has happened this morning, yesterday was it's still the same boat.
So he'd rather trade Rossi then, correct?
Well, he'd rather trade Rossi than give him 7x7.
Right.
Like they still value the player. They still like what he brings to the table.
At their price. Yeah.
But at their price. Yeah, exactly. So, he's going to continue to look. Guerin's going to continue to look, I should say, and see what they can come up with. But it's more likely. This is a similar situation to Buffalo and Byram. This isn't going to be most likely. It's not going to be a futures type deal. Minnesota wants to make strides next season. They feel Rossi can help them. Again, not at that number, So if we're going to move him out, we want to bring in somebody that's going to be able to slot into this lineup and capable of helping us moving forward. That's kind of Minnesota's mentality with him.
Going to give you a couple of center names. You tell me if you've heard anything there and to the best of your knowledge, their availability. But Braden Shen in St. Louis and Mason McTavish in Anaheim.
Shen, I haven't heard too much lately. I think there was some rumblings, around the draft again, just because they were exploring. St. Louis was exploring a lot of things. Obviously, Kyrou. They got close with the Habs, and then they pivoted to the smaller deal, which I think was still great for both teams. St. Louis is an interesting one because they want to be competitive. They want to push forward, and it seems like they're comfortable with Shen. I ran into Shen about a week or so ago, actually, and he seemed pretty comfortable, as if he's moving forward, going back to St. Louis. So if there's been any messaging towards him, it's we're going to move ahead with you. McTavish is an interesting one. That's the one where word kind of came out that with the moves that Anaheim's made, like they want him to take strides. They want him to take the next steps, and he wants to have the ability to take those next steps and to grow as a player and to evolve as a player. But with some of the additions they made, including Granlund, there was some talk around the league that he might not be overly thrilled with the direction that they're going with Quenneville in place. He wants to have more veterans there. It's not that Anaheim's shopping him, but teams have been poking around to see what it would cost to get Mason McTavish out there. And he's an RFA. So I don't think there is a threat of an offer sheet just because Anaheim's one of the clubs with a gazillion dollars of cap space. So I don't think they're scared by any stretch of something like that, but I think they would be willing to listen on McTavish. But it would take, that's going to be a significant blockbuster type of move in terms of that level of talent going back and forth.
Yeah, that's in the Byram Rossi realm of player.
At least, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I might even prop that a little higher.
Wow. How about that? Lastly, the two Leafs, Yarncroke, Domi infinitely available, as I understand. Pagnotta on the island available too.
Toronto, you can add David Kampf to the mix. You can add Ryan Reeves. Nick Robertson's an RFA. His name's out there as well. Toronto's trying to move. Toronto's got about $5 million in cap space. So they've got some flexibility, but it's more so just bodies. They got a lot of bodies in their bottom six. So they're fishing around to try to move it. I think they had a discussion with Yarncroke about just being open about the fact that we got a lot of options here. That includes possibly trading you. And I think he's okay with that. I don't think he's asked for a trade, but I don't think he would object to one given the circumstances. Pagnotta on the island still out there. One of the things I saw a lot of different kind of reports with respect to Utah and their discussions around draft or the fourth overall pick. I had heard that they wanted it would have been a larger deal, but they wanted Matt Barzal in that mix if they were going to move the fourth overall pick. And I was told by someone with the Islanders that we like Higgins. I don't know if we like him that much. So that obviously didn't really get anywhere. But yeah, Pagnott's still out there. 1 year left on his final year of his contract. He's got a little bit of no trade protection, but they're still kind of open to exploring, some of those possibilities. Jared McCann's another name to kind of look at out in Washington. In Seattle, Washington. He's out there as well. His name started to pop up around trade deadline, and he's still available. He's got, I think, 2 years, might be 3. He's got at least 2 years left on his contract. But he's somebody that we've been hearing that Seattle's also open to moving.
And the Islanders aren't going to get crazy with Barzal.
No. They made that very clear very quickly that wasn't going to. Again, look, that doesn't hurt to try. Teams are trying all the time. Teams call and say, "Hey, would this guy be available? What's the cost of that guy?" Word spreads. You try to apply pressure, and it usually doesn't work. But no, I would be beyond shocked if they even consider that option right now.
Yep. So Matt Barzal not coming home. Former Vancouver Canuck Jared McCann. Who knows? Maybe the odd one up the I-5. Have we seen an I-5 trade yet?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. David, outstanding stuff. Thank you so much. TheFourthPeriod.com. You got to follow David on X as well. Thank you, sir. Long time no talk. We'll have you back soon.
Good times, boys. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.